And hi guys, hi there, how are all of you? I hope you all are fine. Well, my name is Yusuf and I'm back on Yusuf Reacts. Well guys, today I'm back again with a very interesting movie review that is there for you people. The movie review that I have for you guys is one of the most awaited movies as far as the series of Indiana Jones is concerned. Now this is the last and the fifth installment of Indiana Jones, and the movie's name is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now what do I talk about this particular film? Well, a typical Indiana Jones movie, yes, I can say about that. Harrison Ford at the age of 80 even doing a very good job, yes, no doubt in that. But there are a lot of things that people have really taken it, and people have really taken it quite seriously. They have been quite, I would say, critical if I talk about it. And there have been reviews regarding this particular movie that have come out and they have really made fun out of it. They have considered it to be not good enough, and they were really not happy with what the movie eventually tend to be unfolding and how the storyline eventually tend to go along. Now if you ask me guys, now the thing that is there is what, that in this particular movie, if we see a different aspect that's there. Now for instance, most of the time we see that the protagonist of a particular movie is someone who's quite young, charming and convincing, but over here we are actually discussing about the life of a very famous character known as Indiana Jones himself. Now because of the time that he has reached at a certain age, now he is not going to be someone who's going to be as, good looking or as convincing or as charming as he used to be in the past. Unfortunately, the thing which I feel is this, that the movie was not such a big disaster the way people eventually took it, and they just literally made a fun and a mockery out of this particular film, which I would say if in one way around it's not good. Means it wasn't so bad the way it was portrayed and how the things eventually went along. All in all, if I talk about it, the movie had very good ups and downs of it. It had those certain humor elements that were there in it. It even showed this thing up that what or how time has eventually changed and how Indy eventually has to struggle to get to the things and so on like that. So the storyline, again, I would say this thing up, like if there is someone who likes Indiana Jones, that person would like this movie. But if there is someone who are those so-called, self-critics who just pop out of nowhere and they just eventually went to go along, they were like, no, this movie was pathetic, it wasn't good enough. Come on, man, it wasn't bad enough. There are worse movies than this, which people eventually tend to go for and say, wow, what a film it was. And this is still a movie that had a lot to offer. All in all, if we talk about this particular film, what do we guys see in this particular film? And then at the end, let's do an analysis, and then let's come to know, and critically after evaluating it, we can come to this view and this point of view that whether it was worth it or it wasn't worth it. So all in all, if we start off with this particular thing, we see that Indiana Jones, this movie starts off with a certain scene from the time of the World War. Eventually we see that the Nazis and Indiana, along with his fellow professor, both of them are eventually going on train. They have a fight. Over there they discover a Nazi having a certain kind of a relic clock that's there. Now that is something that is really, they firstly don't have any clue to that, but that clock's two parts, it means that it is showing the dial of destiny. It means time can be reversed. Now, interesting start. And then on the train on the top they have a fight with it, and then eventually Indy gets saved and his professor also eventually tends to get saved. They get rid of the people who are there in it, and eventually they have that particular relic that's there. Now Indy does what? Indy eventually saves it up and he preserves it, and now we see Indy now becoming a particular professor in a university. He's teaching, and he's teaching history to everyone and so on like that, and means we see now he's spending a particular life where he's now going to be retired and each and everything that's there like that. So all in all, no action and nothing like that. But then comes across a girl, the daughter of that particular professor. She first eventually tends to show him that she's a very nice girl, and eventually, but on the other way around, she's someone who wants to sell that particular relic to a particular group, and that group is the mafia group. And because they are the ones who can eventually pay for such things. The guy, the Nazi guy who had that particular thing in possession, comes to know about that particular thing, and he wants that relic. So this is how the story's plot eventually moves along. Now if you have a look at it, who in the hell would think that this movie was disastrous? Really, I simply have no clue about that. You guys tend to see this thing up that now Indy is someone who, along with that particular girl, now has to get back the particular relic. Now that individual has what intentions? As the title clearly states that it's going to be the dial of destiny, that individual wants to reverse the dial onto that same time frame during the World War where that incident took place, where from where onwards the Nazis eventually were going to lose the particular war. And now Indy has to save it, and he now again is back in his all particular famous attire, which is famous hat, and he has to get rid of that. Now the thing that is there is this, that if people made fun of the action sequences that are there, we have seen a lot worse than that. Means so many unrealistic things that have tend to happen, they have been seen over there. So the thing that is there is what, guys? The thing that I have felt this thing up is this, that right now most of the people, self-proclaimed critics in other words, are the ones who make fun out of such particular things, who take or make a mockery out of such particular things, because it is literally quite easy to do so. Giving credit to people is the toughest task that I feel is nowadays present. So all in all, if I talk about it, the way Harrison Ford even wanted it, and if we have a look at him when he was discussing about this particular movie, he wanted this character to grow, and he wanted this character to end up this particular movie in the perfect manner. And that's what we guys eventually see. I would say all in all how that thing eventually moves around, and how that realistic touch of history tends to move on. Then the fictitious character of Indiana Jones come off, and then this relic of dial of destiny clock that's there, it eventually tends to move on. So all in all, a lot of things that are there. But because of the fact that I would say this thing up, that the young generation who are there, not the young generation I would even say, but this so-called such group of people who really want to talk bad about different kinds of movies, they eventually made a fun out of it, and they eventually made this movie to such an extent that people believe it's the worst movie that ever came out. It's not. It's really good. I would say this thing up, that if you see this particular movie, you yourself would find this thing up, that really Harrison Ford has just done justice with his particular character. The movie has gone on really, really nicely, and a very good movie all in all if I talk about it. Now at the end of it, I would literally like to say this thing up. If you guys have not gone for Indiana Jones, literally you guys would believe what these critics eventually had to say. They had to make so much fun out of it, and they call it a very big disappointment. Indeed it isn't, guys. It was a very nice movie. There were a lot of things that were there about it that really had that, you know, elements of, or that wow factor, if I say in other words. All in all, yes, you can't say it's one of the best movies of Indiana Jones, but it wasn't the worst one also. So now I guess that's how it is, and at the end of it, I guess you guys can now decide that which side would you like to go for, whether it was good enough or it wasn't good enough, and so on like that. So at the end of it, again, I would like to say to you guys literally need to subscribe to the channel, guys, if you haven't done so, because that is something that's really important. You guys have to do that. You have to press the like button, you have to comment on my videos, and you have to share them as much as you guys can. So I guess that's it for today. This is me, Yusuf, saying goodbye to you people. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Take care. Bye bye.